electric conversions for classic cars a good idea?
That's possible?
Sort of. So this concept is something that we're starting to see quite a bit now, especially with simple classic cars. When you look at basic cars like Volkswagens or Minis or some more complex stuff that you might not expect people to convert to electric, like a Mercedes 280 SL. And so we're going to talk about why I think that this is a bad idea. So a lot of YouTubers will try to present information like this as like, oh, I'm going to try to be unbiased and present both sides. So I don't really like that very much because I think you guys know what side I'm on. I'm not going to pretend to have a two-sided approach. But I can talk about the reasons why people are doing this. And I think we can also talk about, you know, the problems that we're going to have to solve in the future with older cars, because these are real problems. So let's talk about why people are doing this first. I think that converting classic cars to electric power is driven by two things. I think it's driven by restoration shops not having the knowledge or the budget to do a mechanical restoration. So most people who buy something like a 280 SL or 190 SL are mostly interested in looks, and they don't really appreciate the mechanical package. And this sort of trickles down where you look at cars that don't have as appealing of a mechanical package as a Mercedes, such as a Mini, which is powered by the same 1,275cc inline four as most British Leyland offerings are. But whether you're looking at, you know, a British Leyland product or a Mercedes product, there are still some pros and cons you have to consider with the driveline. So in the case of the British Leyland product, the 1275 is a ubiquitous engine. Parts will always be available for it, and it is very tunable. That's why I kind of like the 1275. It's sort of like a Volkswagen Flat 4, where repairing one doesn't require a lot of work, and if you change the oil and adjust the valves and don't overheat it, maintaining one isn't really that much work either. You can also let it sit for a long time, change the gas, change the spark plugs, and away you go. Now, Mercedes engines aren't quite this simple, but they seem to be pretty resistant to sitting, judging by the number of cars we get in our shop that have sat and survived. The whole thing, though, is because Mercedes designed engines that ran on more complicated technology for their upper-end cars. You tend to see more people having problems with them and going towards component conversions, such as an entire driveline conversion or even a conversion to an electric motor, because they simply don't want to or can't find anybody to figure out how it works. Now, is this Mercedes' problem? No, not really. It's just a gross indication of how stupid people in our society are getting. About 30 years ago, you could go to most decent Mercedes shops with the 280 SL. I'm not talking about a fly-by-night shop owned by, you know, a couple of East Germans in Miami Beach. I'm talking about a shop that was well run and well organized, where people actually used genuine Mercedes parts and didn't try to take shortcuts on repairs. And anybody could repair these things. You know, and it's funny because you could even take a Mercedes from 1960 and take it to a shop in like 1995, you know, or even as late as the year 2000, and there would be qualified staff on board, because you would get this whole appreciation for Mercedes analog technology. And so since Mercedes replaced their analog technology with computer-based technology, it is more complicated now to find people who understand analog technology. So many shops now, if you bring them an older Mercedes, they'll say, we don't work in anything older than 04 or 2010 or even 2015 in some cases with many dealers. So this presents a huge problem, because if you want to be able to sell a car, by and large, the people who do these electric conversions are shops that buy restoration projects, restore them, and sell them as a finished project to rich people who just want to be seen in an expensive looking car. And then they could have some esoteric conversation in front of a steakhouse about how this sophisticated car has a sophisticated modern electric driveline. Sorry guys, but the restoration shop that you bought your car from sold you a lemon. Good, thank you.
They're here.
Oh, they're here? Oh, cool. Okay. Sold you a lemon. So the lemon, unfortunately, kind of tastes good at first, but then you get a sour taste in your mouth because the car has no range. You have a bunch of weird bespoke electrical technology plumbed into the car that's not Mercedes. So when we work in a car, we try to keep everything 100% Mercedes to the best extent we can, so the car is going to be repairable 20, 30, 50, 70 years from now. Because you want to follow uniformity, you want to follow the rubric that Mercedes created to dictate how the car should be repaired. And when you break with that rubric, that's the beginning of the end, because the next owner is going to improvise. The next owner is going to improvise. The next owner after that is going to have to improvise. And when you keep improvising over and over and over and over again, there is no way to escape that cycle. That's kind of why I'm against it with most classic cars. Now, some people like to make an argument about the internal combustion engine being inefficient. Or they say that in cities they're going to have to go to greener emissions or whatever. I really think that because classic cars represent such a tiny amount of vehicle usage, of internal combustion engine usage in general, just like if you're from the green lobby in Europe and you're watching this video, just leave us alone. Maybe you should go drive an old car and see what it's like. And this is really the thing, right? Modern cars, everything modern has become boring. Everything is electrified. Everything is electronic. Everything is computer controlled. Everything has a baseline software that operates it. Everything interesting that is automated or does anything is controlled by something that you can't fix. Classic cars are one of the few breaks we get from the electronic modern world. They're one of the few analog retreats we have. And this isn't a political or religious thing either, which is even better. It's sort of like soccer where you can put your differences aside and have some fun with each other, and then go back to arguing about stupid things. So the thing is, when you try to update a classic car and bring it into the modern world with modern technology, whether it's a modern injection system or a modern electric motor and battery pack, there is no beauty in it left. You're sucking just a little bit about what makes the car unique, Now, restoration shops, I understand they want to restore cars and sell them. And they think, oh, this is such a bold concept or whatever. But, if you're the shop owner, you're the one that should know how the engine works. Or you should go into another business. If you're restoring classic cars and you can't wrap your head around how to tune a carburetor or fix an electrical system and you're expecting your technicians to do it, sorry, but there's a price of entry. And the price of entry is you must know what you are doing with the product instead of just running the business. We have a term in the automotive world for shop owners who don't get their hands dirty and don't actually know how to work on the cars. So we actually have a few terms, but one of them is a tish mechanic, a desk mechanic, a guy who sits at his desk pontificating about what he thinks is wrong with the car and then dictating the terms of repair to his technicians who better follow his advice. We also refer to these people as schmucks because nothing good comes of being a shop owner with clean hands. We don't respect you. You can't do it. You have to get under the freaking car and get your hands dirty. You got to burn your hand on the exhaust. You know what really adds brownie points? And you go service your customer's car. But let's just put an electric motor in it so we don't have to deal with any of these problems. We'll seem avant-garde, like an Art Deco fusion Mona Lisa and, Andy Warhol painting. It'll be a fusion of modern and classical that nobody's ever seen before. Sorry, keep the two separate. Keep the modern separate. Keep the classical separate. Mixing them just ruins the aura of both. So what I'm saying to sum this whole video up is with the classic Mercedes, the aura of the car is its engine. That's the seed. That's the thing that makes it tick. It's like the movement in a clock. It is like the mitochondria in your cells. It is like the pendulum inside a clock. The fact that people don't understand it except for a very small group of people. Wait for us. Let us do our thing. Pay us fairly for our craft. Don't try to replace us with some soulless electric motor. Then you just have a golf cart that used to be something like a 190 SL or a 450 SL or something. And under the hood, you just have a mess of batteries and a washing machine engine or something similar that doesn't make any interesting noises. It doesn't have any smells. It's eco-friendly, sure, but go take your eco-friendly nonsense to China and tell them to quit manufacturing so much junk for Temu. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're considering at all an electrified classic Mercedes, please stop. Just go buy a golf cart with a Lamborghini body shell on it. We'll see you in the future.